All right, welcome everybody to another session. We're going to talk about Enscape3d rendering plugins for Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, and ArchiCAD. Come on, is this working? Okay, what is Enscape? Um, Enscape is actually a plugin. Okay, so what it does is that it's a lifelink model, basically your model into this real-time rendering. It also has this virtual reality support. So it supports both HTC and Oculus. I'm sure it supports many other VR, but these are the two most popular. And the nicest thing about it is that it's like WYSIWYG, right? So what you see is what you get. So whenever you add in the materials, it's basically going to get transferred over to Enscape for rendering. So if you put in, let's say, a glass, it's going to give you reflectivity. If you add in the objects, it will basically impact how it renders automatically. So it's like a live interactive rendering. So what you do is that when you put certain things, it will just change certain things. Okay. Now, the difference between traditional rendering and this Enscape rendering, traditionally in the past, what we did is that we used ray tracing. And what happened with ray tracing is that it's going to take you 9 minutes just to generate one image. Okay. With Enscape, you don't have to do that anymore. So basically, the rendering just happens automatically. So it's very dynamic. So you can look at time you need to waste when you render with Enscape versus ray tracing. The nicest thing about Enscape is that it actually takes your RPCs. Like, so if you have RPC inside Revit, it will automatically generate into a tree. RPC, it's what is it called? I don't remember. It's something to do with like a flat images. In SketchUp, what you do is that when you insert in any people, it basically, when you rotate it, that object will basically rotate with it. It's similar to how it does it inside Revit. I know that in this office, we use Lumion as well. All right. So what's the difference between Enscape and Lumion? Now, Enscape is basically just a plugin, whereas Lumion, it's basically a standalone. So the nicest thing about it is that you don't need to export anything. With Lumion, you have to export your model into some sort of a format, then it will basically translate that into Lumion. One thing I like about Enscape is that it actually does live updates. So whenever you add in any objects, it automatically updates. Whereas Lumion, every time you update, you have to keep on reinsert them in. So it takes you twice as long if you want to do that. When it comes to animation, Lumion's probably the best. Whereas Enscape is it's a still image. You can't do anything. Enscape for material is WYSIWYG. So it depends on what you put into the model. It's going to reflect on whatever material. Whereas Lumion, it's basically going to be very complex. You can paint them. You can do whatever you want with it. So it's a little bit more controlled. Okay. And when it comes to costs, Enscape's pretty cheap. Okay. So that's like $649 if you want a floating license. If you want like your own user, it's $499. Whereas if you want to go with Lumion, it's like a €3,000. Right, so it's about like $4,000 Canadian. So there's a difference between Pro and a Basic. Pro just gives you everything, and then Basic just gives you like 33% less feature than the Pro. Okay, so it really depends on what you want. Now, when to use Enscape or Lumion? Okay, so this is basically what I typically tell users is that if you have to do basic rendering, you don't require any animations, and then you have multiple consultants that's working with you. Let's say they're using Revit. I would pick Enscape. And then the thing is that if the clients are not picky with material and object, you want to do simple fly through, then I would say use Enscape. Now, if the client requires advanced rendering, they have to get full quality, very picky about materials, then I'll just say use Lumion, right? A perfect example would be if you want to do SkyTrain, kind of like where people are walking in and out, then I'll just say go Lumion. But if you want to do like everyday generic kind of a thing, you want to see the mass context and stuff like that, I think Enscape probably will do your job. Okay. Now, costing wise, I would just say the next time if you ever have to quote for any rendering project. Always code with the Enscape first, right? If the client requires any animations or anything, that actually increase the costs, right? Just let them know, because this setup, it's going to take you longer than Enscape, okay? And also, if you have multiple users, that's, let's say, for instance, they're working mechanical, electrical, everybody's using Revit, then I would approach Enscape rather than Lumion. Lumion requires a little bit more setup, and sometimes you don't want that. All right, let's do a demo. So how do Enscape work? So what I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to close this off. So this is basically how it import in. So I'm just going to go through how it works. So the first thing you want to do is that whenever you have Enscape, it's going to give you this particular kind of a setup. Now, this one is basically, if you want to enable Enscape, just click on this, and then it basically will generate that. So now I'm just going to pick a small space, right? So I'm just going to turn off scope box. Also, it works with scope boxes, so whatever you cut, Enscape will follow suit. So let's say, for example, come on, I just want to check, did I record my video? Oh, it is recording. Good. Okay, so let's say I'm going to cut my model down to here. I want to turn on, let's say, our consultants. I do not want to care about the rest. Okay, let's say this is what you want. Okay, the next thing you want to do is that if you want your VR headset to be enabled, you can click on that, right? Enable. Right now, I'm just going to disable it. What you do now is that you want to press start. And what it does is that it basically takes your model currently, and then it's going to get translated into the Enscape. Now, a couple other stuff you want to know is that all of this is going to get grayed out until you have that thing enabled, okay? This will not go if you don't turn this on, right? So what Enscape does is that it basically load its own software. It's just auto export, okay? And I'm just going to let this run. And then the only thing you could do with this is that there's also asset library. Later on, we're just going to look at it, what it has. So when you click on this, okay, asset library. Right now, you only have 152 objects where you could just basically filter in and put in whatever objects is in there. It's not a lot, but that's okay. They say they're going to add more in the 2.5 release. Okay. So you could just keep on adding in. Later on, I should show you animation where I put in all this stuff in, right? Just to basically spice up your thing. Okay, once you're inside there, okay, there we go. So what this does is that it allows you to basically go into the model, explore where you want it, right? You can actually change your daylighting. So how you do it is that when you hit orbit, right click, left and right, and then shift. Okay, so let's say I want to go hold my left button and then press shift and then just go back and forth. So you can actually change your environment settings. So you can see there's the moon. All right, let's see, I'm going to put it there. Now it doesn't have any lighting in there because I did not load the lighting in there. But if you want to see it happening, I can go into VV and just say I'm going to turn on my interior. What it does is that Enscape will actually recognize that you added those objects in there, right? And then it's going to live update those things. And once you see it, it's going to light up the scene. Okay, right now it doesn't do anything. I could just go in there. I can just turn it on. Now, if you want to change the puffy clouds and all that stuff, it's quite easy. But first, I have to load this in. There's a setting in there which allows you to do a lot of the complicated stuff. And then there's also other one, like camera path. Maybe I should show you how to load the camera path or how to create one. First, I'll create one, and then I'll save it so that you guys could see what is going on. All right, it's loaded in. You will hear some sound at the background. There you go. So whenever you load, means that it requires computer, CPU, just to handle that. Once this is loaded in, okay, you have your lighting. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the daytime to nighttime. You notice that the lighting actually changes. So it actually adds lighting, the interiors, and when I go out, you'll see the lighting effects inside. So all the lighting that you added in from the Revit objects, this is all from Revit objects. Once you add it in, it actually has this light automatically filled in to your model. Okay, so you can actually study how light behaves, right, before you actually say, okay, how this room is going to light up. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool tool to actually kind of evaluate what's going on. Now, if you want to change some settings in here, a couple things you could do. Okay, is it done? Fly mode. Okay, so in here, there's a couple settings you can do. One thing I like to do in here, atmosphere. If you want to add fog, okay, I should change some of the settings in here. You can't see it until it's morning time. You see that there's a couple of haze. If I turn it off, it's kind of give you that haze look, right? You can put forest, like there's a couple presettings. I would typically don't use this because it's all wrong. Okay, later on I should show you like the city of Vancouver I added in, and then when I put that background, it doesn't look proportionally. It's wrong. Okay, so make it clear if you want. Now, if you hate the sky, you can always load it in. Now, there's also load skybox. If you have certain preset skybox, Enscape has a couple of things you can download and load it in. So if you have one, load it in. For now, I like the cloud, so I'll just leave it alone. Now, for cloud density, you can make it as little cloud as possible or make it like all cloudy. Variety, you can make it the same, or you can just say, okay, I don't want that. Let me put in, high clouds. So it's very interactive. Okay. Contrail, if you want more, what it does is that it adds this contrail, but most of the time I just say, okay, just make it 2 is fine. Longitude, latitude. Okay, so this one kind of like, if you know your longitude and altitude and stuff like that, this will basically change based on your, where the sun is supposed to be. But for now, just leave it as default. The next one is going to be very, very good. So if I want to brighten up the scene, let's say, for example, if the light is not too strong enough, what you can do is that you can just make it 500%. Okay, just brighten up the scene. So I can go 500% or less. Typically, I just leave it as default 100%. But if you have to brighten up, that's how you do it. Now for nighttime, so let's say I'm going to change this to nighttime. Okay, if I set this by default 100, it's very dark, right? So if you want like the star and moon kind of help you kind of illuminate the scene, then I just say hit it 300%. So your scene's going to be lighted up. Moon size. Okay, so here, let's see, where's my moon? I'll probably have a moon somewhere. Okay, so moon size, if you want to change it, you can make it a small or 1,000%. So just basically just give it a little bit of snaz. Mouse movement, I just say just leave it default. Now, grass rendering, if you have any export appearances and stuff like that, you see that replace archivation content. It will take the whatever RPC you have inside your Revit. Let's say you have a tree and all that stuff, it's going to replace it with it. Artificial brightness. So I know that sometimes by default it's 100%. If let's say right now it's too bright, this is how you tone it down. Is that you just go 60%. So you can just change the lighting pretty quickly. Because sometimes when you do rendering, it's very, very difficult to just control how lighting works. So this is kind of like helped you a little bit. When you do capturing, this is where I'm going to say, okay, what do you want? You want 4K, you want 720, 1020, or you can customize it, okay? If you go 4K, it means that whatever screenshot you do, whatever video it's going to do, it's going to process that resolution. Quality, now, if you want to do maximum and 60 frames per second, you can do that here. This is pretty simple stuff. Other than that, I think that's pretty much how Enscape operates. So it's very, very simple customization, not much to it. All right, let's generate like a walkthrough. Okay, so if you want a certain angle that you want to save, let's say for example, I want to save this particular angle, right? Then the first thing you want to do is just press Hit K. You want to add keyframe. So let's say for example, I'm going to add a keyframe here, okay? And I'm going to walk through this boulevard, and then I want to say, okay, here I just want to add another keyframe, okay? When I click on this, and you could adjust the time. So right now, the time of the day, I just want it to be, let's say 12 o'clock. And then the previous keyframe, you could say, okay, it's 12 o'clock, that's good. So what you could do is that you could adjust the field of view. So if I'm going to be closer or longer. Now, you could adjust the timing of it. So let's say, for example, I want to pan it about 5 seconds. And when you hit apply, and when you go back and you can say hit preview, you see that it automatically just does that. Okay. Now, if you don't like that, let's say for example, you saw that, okay, it's going to clip into this, right? So what I typically do is I go back to the first keyframe. I would insert in my second keyframe and say, okay, my second one, I want it to be right here, just looking at the building. And when you hit confirm, what it does is that it actually adds the keyframe in the middle of the two. So when you go back and you want to say, okay, that's my camera there, and then when you go preview, okay, then it will not hit those building, okay? Because if you set it first one, it's gonna go like it wants to do a loop, right? It just wants to take the shortest distance. So if you have a distance that is like, you know, cut through a building, you want to add a keyframe. Now, the nicest thing about this is that you can always go back. Let's say, for example, this is too much. I want to say, click on here. I want to adjust the camera a little bit. Let's say, for example, I want to see up. I want to change the framing angle to be that much. And then when you hit apply, and go back. Now what you could do is you could just go preview it. Okay, so it does it pretty interactively. So if you like that kind of a pan, what you could do is that you could click on camera path and save it. Okay, you can save the camera path. Let's say this is going to be demo. I'm going to call it demo. Okay, so what this does is that next time when you load your Enscape model, all you have to do is load the camera path. Let's do the one with this guy right here. And what this does is it actually pick out all the camera scenes that I've created. So I could say go here. Let's go back. Let's go preview it. Right now you notice that it goes very, very slow because I haven't adjusted the time. But if you click on this, you can say, okay, how much you want the time to be. So let's say, for example, I want 4 seconds. Here, it's too long. So let's go 8 seconds. Apply. You can go back to frame. Okay, that's good. That's good. Then 16 seconds. Sure, that's good. And last one. Sure, that's good. Do it here. And when you go back and then let's preview it, you notice that it changes the it changes the camera, right? Right now it's kind of like, okay, it's going into the building. So that's how you adjust the model. Okay, everything's done. Okay, so next thing I want to do is I want to change material. Let's say, for example, in this particular scene, I want to change this to a different color. So all you can do is select this object. Okay, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is to say this material. I want to change it to something else. Oh, actually, that's the wrong one. This one, metal yellow. And let's make it a different color. So what I'm going to do is let's make it all brighten up. Okay, brighten up green or red or whatever. So the first thing you want to do is that you want to duplicate it and say, let's say radioactive. Red, or yeah, let's go red. The next thing you want to do is you want to pick the material from this. So I just go default appearance library. I'm going to use plastic because if you want to make your scene light up at night, right, you see that there's green, red, and orange. I typically choose one of these. Let's say radioactive red. Okay, just pick that as my radioactive. Okay, next thing you want to do is that you want to hit apply, say OK, and then hit OK. Now this scene is going to have one radioactive, and then Enscape's going to automatically pick that up. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that if you want to stop Enscape from updating constantly, what you could do is that you could just say pause that, so you can make a modification. And if you want that to change, you hit that resume, it will automatically resume all the update changes. All right, there we go. So there's your radioactive red, all built in. So that's the nicest thing about this, is that it can you could do a lot of. Oh, okay, that looks nice. So it looks red in the morning.
So unlike Lumion, we don't have to colorful prints in the morning.
No. So it's
individually go in and
yeah. So this is also pretty good. Like, it gives you this option to do this kind of a thing. Yeah, maybe I should do one for SketchUp so that you understand. It's a similar thing. So I'm just going to close out of this. Okay, I'm just going to load up SketchUp. Okay, let's go SketchUp. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is just open up a sample model. If you guys have any sample model, just ignore. Okay. Richmond Brickhouse, VR. Okay, I'm just going to use that as an example. All right. So how you access this is you click on extension, and you say Start Enscape. Okay. Now, it operates a little bit different, because what happens is that whatever views you have in here, it's going to be what the view itself inside Enscape. Whereas in Revit, you kind of have to pick which 3D views you want to be in, then it automatically generates that. For this one, oh, there we go. It's pretty fast. Okay. So it does that. And you notice that the materials are also in there. Now, if you want to put, like, let's say you don't want this, you want to put in like a real people. So what you could do here is that you go to extension, go to Enscape, and then in here, what you do is that you just go Enscape objects. Sound linked. Nope, this is different. Sorry. Extension, Enscape, asset library. That's what I want. Okay, so let's say, for example, I want to put my people. Okay, let's put in Yvonne. Okay, let's put it there. Okay, and let's say I'm going to put in pot there. Okay. I think by that time, let's see if it did update. Aha, there we go. So it did update. So try to use that as much as possible. If you have furniture, let's put a. That's a good furniture. Oh, that's a good one. There we go. Automatically generated. So it's a pretty interactive kind of a thing. So you can just put it in. You know, it is what it is. It's a very, very, very easy program to learn and use. Any questions so far with this?
So I missed your introduction.
Oh, okay.
What's the difference, I don't know, playing around between Lumion and
Okay. This one, what happened is that the nicest thing about this is that when you are working with Revit and you have consultants that's also using Revit, rather than Lumion, whenever you make changes, you have to update that constantly. Whereas this one, it's just you load it in and it's automatically just generated based on whatever material you put it in. So for time's sake, Lumion requires extra setup, whereas Enscape, you don't have to do that. So what you do is that whatever materials you put in here, it's going to get generated inside Lumion. Enscape. Whereas Lumion is a little bit more setup required. So back to what I said before, if you go inside Lumion versus Enscape, it's a standalone software. This one just plugs in, no export required. And also the cost. If you think about the cost, right, it's $649, and then it doesn't do animation. So if you want to do animation, then I would just say choose Lumion. But if you do not want to use animation, Enscape's fine. It's just about speed and what the client wants. So if you have a lot of teams that's using Revit and you want to render their stuff, then pick Enscape, because you just take the model, just put it in. Whatever they update, it's automatically generated, so you don't have to do anything. Whereas Lumion, you have to do extra step. You have to export the model and then put it in, make sure everything's correct, then you proceed. So for updating changes, I would just say use Enscape. But if you have to do anything that's like one and done, final, then choose Lumion.
So if it was like a marketing image that we knew the design was set, then we could, and there was the money for it, we could go ahead and do a Lumion thing. But if it's like design,
keep changing,
doing like a sort of design studies. Then want Enscape.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Even lighting too. Like if you want to know, like, okay, what this fixture versus that fixture is, because what I did in this particular project is that I go like Revit City or BIM Object is a perfect location where I look at a lot of this stuff. I browse for lighting and all that stuff, and some of the lighting is just amazing. The unfortunate part is that some of the lightings are just overwhelmed, or it's underperformed, or whatever, right? This is all preset from the manufacturers.
Right. And isn't that just like the model itself isn't that good, or is it?
No, it's just that sometimes they have a setting in there where this is the output that they provide, and then the light is not strong enough, right? So what I have to do is that I have to look for other manufacturers and see what other lights do they provide.
Right.
And then just to
you can't just tweak the setting.
You can modify, fake it, right? But for like the project I did is that I have to somewhat faking it, but at the same time I kind of understood how they work with it. Right. So you can tweak it as much as you want. But this is kind of like, one and done. If you're not an engineer, like lighting engineer, you're not a mechanical and stuff like that, this is a perfect kind of opportunity.
Just like aesthetic.
Yes. Yeah. Now, one thing Enscape can do is that it can actually export out as a interactive, right? So if you want, you can export out as this Enscape interactive kind of a demo. I did this for our client, and they loved it because they could just use it as a marketing kind of a thing, and then you could just take screenshots, and they don't need to have the Enscape program. They could just run this interactive things.
So charge a lot for that if you're going to do it.
Yeah, and it just opened up its own thing. So I should show you the video that I done for this client. Okay, so here the video. Like basically what I have is that I have this all this environment built in. So you notice that there's a city of Vancouver. This is all built within Revit, so I put it in, and this is done by Dialog, by third party. They keep changing stuff, so I just have to basically accept their Revit model as it is, and then the rest I just put it in. Now, if you want to do randomized stuff, what I did here is that I took a pharmaceutical family, which I download from BIM objects, and then just apply different materials. Now, the water do animate, so that's the nicest thing about Enscape is that it does animate, but it doesn't animate other stuff. That's the unfortunate thing.
It's easier imagination.
Yeah, yeah. Assuming that the person it's riding a bike. Well, for what it is, it gives a perfect pictures. I mean, if this is the quality that the user wants, like the client wants, this is a perfect opportunity. Now, for this one, I just go in there and just model the inside, how that storage space is supposed to look like. Even included the lighting and the mechanical duct just to get that feel of the space. Don't mind me about how the interior, because I'm not interior design, so I just slap on together based on whatever furniture I see it's available. So
keeping in mind this was asked for by a client for just for ADP and public information meetings in District of North Vancouver. So it's they're wanting this sort of thing more and more as part of the presentation in lieu of a model or lots of boards and images. They find they get a lot more reception from the city, both city staff as well as the design panel.
So what I did here is that I added in like a dimension kind of a thing, so they can actually see, okay, what's the height, and then as you zoom out, it like that thing disappears. So it can be done. And then you notice that the background here is actually a North Shore Mountain. It's actually huge. It's like we're talking about 30 kilometers or even bigger than that. I should show you like the inside the Revit, like the size of that. Like zoom in, this is your tiny little thing, and then you have a big island of stuff. I mean, it generates the environment quite nicely. So you have this, that's updated last night, so.
Oh, there's Stanley Park in the background.
Yes.
There's not enough trees on Stanley Park.
I know. I just put it in because, you know what, if someone wants to go crazy, just fill in the trees.
Well, that's an interesting thought though, because if you have a base model of Vancouver that you're working with, that you just like.
Yeah.
If it isn't something you reuse over and over again,
yeah,
it's probably worth at some point a little time on the Stanley Park, right? This is really cool.
Are there any filters that you can play around for renders?
Not really. Like Enscape is like what you see is what you get. That's the unfortunate thing, is that you can't put in, okay, that 2 I have to move. I think it's on the wrong. Okay. Yeah, sometimes it does that, right? Like, yeah, that 2 I have to move, right? It's something you notice. You don't notice it until you render it. It's like, okay, just something that looks wrong, right? Then you make a fixes. This is what I like about Enscape and Lumion, is that this regeneration only takes like less than half an hour just to get the video out. So you can keep doing it constantly, so you get your thing perfectly right. So this is nighttime. Yeah, it's pretty nice. And when you talk about interactive, let's see. So I have this this Enscape. There we go. And what you can do is that you could do whatever you want with this. You could change it, and then the client can just like fly around, go up, just to look at the cityscape, and then they can change the shadow. Okay, that looks good. And if you want to like go all the way to cityscape, you can do it.
Kind of a place with a little park.
Yeah, that's okay, because it's like a combination of AutoCAD and stuff like that. I have to model. I was like, I have no time to model it. I just like leave it as it is.
Absolutely not.
So what I have here is that the red mark, it just illustrate where the property line. So
how do you build that kind of line work in those dimensions? Is that like
railing?
It's a railing.
It's a railing, and railing will actually help with basically if you have a topo.
Yeah.
It will basically follow.
Follow the topo.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so I should show you how massive this model, just as a scale. Okay, let's
and
say
those dimensions. How are those?
Those are model.
Okay.
Those
so
are family. Yeah.
Model.
Okay, so this is the site right here. So if you want to look at like, okay, the context, the larger one, this is the extent of the model. So let's say I'm going to zoom extent. So I have to model like, so basically the city of Vancouver. That's the site. If you want to go even bigger, North Shore Mountain. So you could technically build anything out of Revit. So if I zoom extend, you see that that's some North.
Where did that come from?
Okay, the secret to this recipe is that if you ever go to City of North Van, so City of North Van, Vancouver data, There's a huge data. Some of them they do have it, some of them they don't. So it really depends where you want to do it. So you want to get their GeoWeb. So there's like a lot of stuff in there that you can download it. So you have like 100 meter contour. So what I did is I just download that and do the geodetic and all that stuff, and then basically generate the topo. So this was done. I think this was done by my previous company because I had a site somewhere right here, but I want to generate like the North Shore Mountain just to see the background, like where it is. And well, I took this and then I just plunk it in here and say, okay, this looks good. So yeah, based on that basically generate this massive environment, which looks nice at the end. I'm kind of surprised that it works out. So all the sand, everything is from the city, okay? City information. All of this I did not model. I just took that thing in and then just generated. All of this I have to model it, of course. I just put it in, murky water. But all of this stuff, I think they do have building outlines. So if you go into the city, they do have building outline, and then you can just basically trace it over, and then that.
I think even these A-frame sheds were they even showed up on the LiDAR, didn't they?
They did. It was like it was a topo kind of a thing. So I had to kind of kill it, and then just built my own A-frame in there because it's kind of looks goofy, but this one makes sense. Like they actually LiDAR this particular sand, so it works out quite good. So what I did here is that I just basically just pick an area and say change that material to sulfur.
Right.
Okay, and then this one you can't find like certain things I cannot find inside Revit. So what I have to do is that the other way you can cheat in this is just go to Google Warehouse, just download whatever they have and import it into the Revit, because some of them have materials already built in. So which is kind of nice because when I look at this, it's like okay, there's a couple of flaws, but you know, when you're at that distance, you can't see it. Nobody cares. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you can build as much as you want. And then what it does is that it doesn't take much. And all this stuff, it's an existing boat. Yeah. When you go to Google Map, it has all this boat. So I just plunk it in there just as you know, if the client wants to see, oh, it's there. Okay, it's there.
There's no Lionsgate Bridge.
Yeah, I know.
Come on.
I know. That's too much, right? So I didn't bother with the Lionsgate, but if you want, I could do it. Now, that's the thing about this is that if you want to go to the city, I put in a light into the city. So if you want to do a cityscape where it lights up at night using Enscape, I have a trick that you guys could actually use. So what I did here, so if you go. Come on, faster. Unfortunately, it's kilometers, right? So we're talking.
It's like C-bus speed, right?
Yeah. Even though I'm going like maximum speed. Right. So if you want to make it like it lights up at night, the one trick that you could do is get one of this panel. It's just a box. So what I did here is that I use a box. Called window. It's basically a face-based family. So all you have to do is just put whatever you want randomly. Okay. And what it does is that this thing, I have a material that basically called window light. Okay. So within this window light, I just made it self-illumination. Just make it white, and you can just say, I want it to be extremely, like if you want to go extreme, like frosted bulb, 21,000 lumens, it goes super bright. When you actually zoom out, the city actually looks like it's lighting up. So yeah, you could do that. So this is how I kind of like modify the materials and stuff like that. Just make it look like it's lighting up. And from the distance, it looks like it's lighting up. But from this Enscape, if I go back to my, sorry if this is a snail pace. That's the unfortunate thing about this is that I wish there's a warping,
right.
Because I know. I wish I could click on this. It goes there, right? That's VR. Like if you ever play with a VR, you click on that, saying that whatever that surface, go there. Oh, there we go. You see that right here. That's my window light. So yeah, that's what I did. And then if I wanted to change this to morning time, oops, they show up like that, so they won't light up. All right.
So Enscape has a sort of library that you can place objects over here.
Yes, it does. It does. Yes.
In the model, this model, not in Revit.
In Revit, yes, you can. So
like in Lumia, you can place objects in Lumia.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do that in Enscape?
Oh yeah, you can. So here they have an asset library. It's similar to what I have. Okay, so in here you can just place it in there. It won't look good, unfortunately. Let's say, for example, I'm going to place it there. It looks like that blocky thing. It won't look good.
So you're still placing it in Revit?
Yes.
In your Enscape model. Like in Lumia, you can place it in Lumia.
Yeah, this one is actual object inside Revit.
So that's up with one of them on its own work set, for example.
Exactly. So for this particular set, maybe I should turn off dialogue. So when you look at the interior, this is the interior model that I've...
Did you populate all that stuff?
I did.
Didn't originally, but
yeah,
how come the windows are so empty?
Yeah, no, they just wanted. Okay, that's fine. I just took the easiest way to kind of like how to populate this. I just found out there's a pharmaceutical family that has all the shelving and everything, and just add a material and just randomize it, and then it looks like that.
Oh, cool.
And then I also have a generator that's big enough that could fit it in, so that whenever you look from far, it doesn't look like anything, right? So it's just a randomizing stuff. And some of them they want to originally they want a keg, so I just put it in there. So yeah, you can go crazy with this. It doesn't matter like how much model you put in here. It just depends on how real you want it, because once you go into the Enscape, it actually just generate everything. So.
But if you're doing a constantly updating model, then you just want to have this all organized in its own.
Yeah. So what I typically do, how I do it is that I don't start this. I just leave it as it is, and then just work like piece by piece.
Right.
I link them as much as possible so that if let's say I want to give this because Dialogue wants like our interior design stuff, right? So I just send them this model. I'm not going to send them the whole context, because the minute that you put everything in one basket, it's too big. So here I just break it out based on little pieces. So this is more detail for the interior, and then you want to go, larger context. Then I just put another link because it gets so big. Okay, answer to your question, how you built that model, it's right there. So it's basically a family. So I just put it in as a dimension. All right, any questions so far? Pretty interesting thing, because Lumion and Enscape has its place. But I see this more to do with if you keep on changing designs and you want to get your lighting right, I think Enscape is probably the fastest program to use.
To some extent, more of a design tool than...
Yes, yeah. I would use Lumion if your client wants like a rendering, and then that the design is finalized, you don't change anything. I would use Enscape only if your design is still ongoing, and then you have consultant that keeps sending you file. Then I use Enscape, just much easier to set up. But both have its place. So one will do animation, this one would not. So just keep in mind, like if you have closed door, it's closed door unless you model the door to be slightly open and you walk in. Because originally the door was actually closed in one of the shots, right, in the video. But we tell them to model in because it's their building. It's we're not touching their building. Like for example, this one, that's part of the building, so we're not touching it. So they have to do that from their end. So from our end, we just basically fill in whatever is inside.
Just a question about the lighting. So if you include the lighting fixtures with their illumination characteristics in the Revit model, then does Lumion understand that information? Like, does that lighting show Lumion the same way that it does in Enscape?
Now, Enscape is a little bit different because for lighting inside Revit, this is what you're gonna get. I should copy this. Okay, it's gonna say that. Can't place it. Okay, so let's assume that I have a light inside my thing. Let's say lighting fixture. Suspended ceiling light. So this is what kind of drives it. But if I want to edit the actual light, this is what drives it. So when you go into the light definition, it has this as a definition. It could get very, very antsy and tricky. I just don't bother with this. I just leave it as it is. If it looks good, it looks good. But most of the manufacturer, they will modify this, right? Because this is their stuff. And whatever, like for architects, we just take it in, and if it looks good on Lumion basically just take this and say, this is the lighting effect. Then it will just calculate based on that. So for us, we don't have to do much. I think Lumion has a little bit more of customizable inside the lighting effect, whereas Lumion it is what it is. But if you want to modify how much light you want to put in and all that stuff, you kind of have to do it in here. So let's say, for example, in this particular hanging light, you kind of have to change it here. So color intensity, you kind of have to give it a voltage and all that stuff. To me, I'm not an electrical engineer, so I don't bother. I just say whatever looks good, it's good in my books, right? But this should be electrical engineer that calculate this, and then Enscape will just translate that information into the lighting, and then they just simulate that. Yeah, and it also has this infrared. I'm not sure if you guys could. It has an infrared. Maybe I should start a model, a small one. I forgot to mention that you can actually make your model white. So let me turn off everything. Let's see. So let's assume that you want to change one of your model to white. Let's do the food truck example. Okay. So one thing I like about Enscape is that if you isolate this object and go Enscape, okay, it does it pretty fast. So you can isolate that object, and it will just basically generate that information. So if you want to make your model, there we go. Okay. Here's my model. Okay, go in. All right, fancy burger. Okay. So if you want to change your model white, so the first thing you could do inside your Revit, let's go to settings. So for rendering style, you see that, I should go into, where is it? Where am I? Here. Okay, so general, you could go white, so it makes it all white. I'm gonna go this, you can do that. You can light transmission. Oh, there you go. I'm going to do some weird color. What is red? So if you want to go like infrared mode, tells you what is your light, how much light's going to bounce off that. And this is a good way to kind of like simulate that information. At nighttime, it just say, okay, there's light inside. So if I click on none, you see that there's light inside. So whenever there's a light, it's going to tell you where's your infrared, right?
That'd be an interesting output to make like a Photoshop or something. You know?
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, there you go, infrared. It tells you, all right, that's your lighting scene, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't tell you calculate the energy loss, right? It'll be nice. It's too much if you think about that. So transmission, yeah, looks pretty good, but it's not like 100%. I just typically hit none. Any questions so far? Pretty cool? Pretty cool. Yeah, just try it out. I'm pretty sure Rhino is going to work the same if you use Rhino, if you use SketchUp. It's going to have the same features. So just play around with it for lighting. I mean, a lot of it, it's very interactive. You just put lighting fixtures and then see how it goes, right? Does it light up your room, or is it very dim? Do you need to add more lights? So that's how I'm able to get the this lighting effect, because it's all about studying that light. If I haven't done it, I would probably never get this kind of a lighting effect. It was too dark. So I just told Dialogue, okay, I have to cheat the lighting a little bit. So I just had to put some, floor lighting, and it looks nice. All right, that concludes our presentation. So if you have any questions so far, just let me know.
Will you be posting the video, Simon? Please send us the link to your video.
Oh yeah, I would do that. So it's gonna get processed.
Thank you.